Today in my global kitchens, I'm going to be making challah. And today I'm making it for the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah. So I'm going to be making a round braided challah, which I just learned to do recently. My sister sent me step-by-step instructions, so that will come later. But I'm going to make my general challah recipe that I make every single week. I've done this for years, and it's really very simple. The whole process from start to finish, when it comes out of the oven, runs around 2.5 to 3 hours max. But hands-on, it's not that long, so it's not a big deal. In my bowl, I have 3 cups of bread flour waiting to go, to which I'm going to add some sugar, about 1/2 cup of sugar. Just combine those 2 things. Then I have warm water. It's got to be less than 110, 115 degrees. I don't actually take the temperature, but I can tell just from feeling it. It's like a baby's bottle, not any warmer than that. And I have 2 a little bit rounded teaspoons of dry yeast. I buy this in bulk and keep it in the freezer, but it's the equivalent of 1 package that you would buy. And I have 1 egg, a little bit of vanilla, 2 tablespoons of softened butter, about another cup of flour, bread flour, and a teaspoon and 1/2 of salt, table salt, that I'm going to actually add in with the dry ingredients right now. So that's it, and I will show you the process. First thing, I take my warm water and I add the yeast, and I add a little bit of sugar just for the yeast to grow, to make sure my sugar's live, and I whisk those together. And then I wait about 5 minutes for it to bubble up to make sure that everything's good to go. So 5 minutes have passed and the yeast has worked its magic. You can see it's bubbled, and that's what we're waiting for. So next I add the egg. And a little drop of pure vanilla extract. Just a drop. And I've already got measured out here my butter. It's very, very soft. I took it out last night. And that goes right in with the liquid ingredients. I'm going to take my liquid ingredients, put them in with the flour and sugar, and just stir with a spatula to start. Alright, I've stirred this for about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, and you can see it's really still very sticky. It needs more flour. So bit by bit, I've got another cup of bread flour here. I'm not sure how much it'll take, but we'll start. We add maybe 2 tablespoons at a time, and again stir it. It's going to be getting thicker, and I will need to use my hands pretty soon here. I've only put about 1/4 to 1/3 of a cup of flour in here, and it's getting thick enough it's hard to stir by hand. So I'm going to take some flour on my counter and just turn this out. Okay, I'm starting to knead the bread now, and this works the flour in. I just turn the dough in a clockwise fashion, and when it gets too sticky and starts to stick to the counter, I'll add a little bit more flour, which it's really not doing right now. So we'll get the gluten going and keep working. Now it's starting to stick a little bit, so I'll just barely add another tablespoon or so at a time. Alright, I've been kneading the dough and adding flour for about the last 5 minutes, and it's feeling like it's done to me. When I go like this, it sticks, but it doesn't really stick to the counter, so that's a perfect consistency. It's a little wet, and we can add a little bit more flour in the next phase, but it's nice and smooth. And I have my bowl, which I've cleaned and buttered, and I simply place the dough inside, cover it with the tea towel, and it's going to go into my oven, which is a nice warm place, for about 1 hour to proof. I would say I've added about a little more than half of my 4th cup of flour, so this totally has 3.5 cups of flour. This makes one big loaf. as you'll see. So into the oven, away from drafts, and the oven is not preheated at all. It's just the ambient temperature. So it's nice and warm in there. It's a warm day today. It can't be a cold place, but it's going to stay in here for about an hour. Then we'll continue. All right, an hour has passed, and I'm going to get my bread out of the oven. It's been rising. And the way you can tell it's ready to go, you take your finger and push it in, and if the hole remains, then that means it's set to go. The indentation here, see how it doesn't grow back together much? I'm kind of slating it. Okay, so I'm going to put it on my counter and divide it into 4 pieces to braid, and then leave it for a little bit and braid it and rise it again. Okay, I'm going to slip it out of the bowl. You can see it's pretty sticky. Neat. And as I work it, it's going to be okay. I need just a titch more flour so I can work with the dough. Okay, and I'm going to divide this into 4 equal pieces. Make balls and let it be for a bit so that the dough relaxes for me to braid. 1, 2. Again, I need just a titch more flour. I'm going to try to make smooth balls here before I let it rest. All right, I'm going to take each ball of dough here, and they've been resting for about 2 minutes, and I'm going to make a snake out of it as long as I can. This is nice dough. See, it relaxes back a little bit, not as much as it would have had I not let it rest. So each one of these balls is going to go into a big snake. This looks to be about 2+ feet long. There's one. Actually, yeah, about 2 feet. These 4 dough balls have been rolled into snakes that are about 2 feet long each, and they rested for a minute or so. The 2 ropes are laid parallel to each other around 2.5 inches apart. The 3rd rope is going to come over the first and under the second. We're just making a tic-tac-toe basically. And the final rope is going to go under the first and over the second one. So this is how we start. This is 1 pair, 2 pairs, 3 pairs, 4 pairs. This is going over, so this is going to on the first beginning. So we're going to put this rope right here on the left underneath the one that was over. We do this all around, just work in a circle. Make an X. And then we start the fun. This is going under, so this is going to go over its neighbor here. This is going to go over its neighbor here. Over and over. That's round 1. Then I'm going to work backwards in a spiral. This was under, so it's going over, 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 and over. And I'm going to continue another round. Over, over. This will be the last round. Over and over. And I'm going to take the rest of these pieces and sort of pinch them around the edges. Watch carefully because this is the really neat part. Just make sure everything's secured down along the edges, which it is. Carefully flip it over, and you'll place it on your cookie sheet. And that's going to be your round loaf. And again, this has to stay to rise for 45 minutes to an hour. I'm putting it back in an unheated oven, covered with my tea towel, and then we'll brush it with egg wash and bake it. So about 45 minutes have passed. My bread is risen, and halfway through the rising time, I took it out of the oven and preheated the oven for 20 minutes, which is what my oven takes. In this little measuring cup, I have 1 egg beaten with a tablespoon of water, and I strained it through a little mesh strainer just to get rid of the white part of the albumin. It goes on much easier without the strings. And I'm going to add a drop, and I need a drop of vanilla to this, just to make it sweet. Sometimes I've added sugar, a little bit of sugar to the egg wash as well, which I won't do today. And what I generally do is I brush this all over the challah, then I sprinkle with sesame seeds. These are black sesame seeds. Then I brush it again to hold the seeds in place so they don't drop off. Okay, there's the first round. I'm taking about a tablespoon of black sesame seeds. You can use white sesame seeds, you can use poppy seeds. Now I'm going to finally put this egg wash on top of the sesame seeds to keep them in place, brushing all over the bread. And now I'm going to put the bread on the middle rack in a preheated 350 degree oven. And I'm setting my timer for about 31 minutes, which is what it takes to rise to about 190 degrees Fahrenheit. And the 31 minutes are up. The bread looks beautiful. It is ready to come out, and I'm going to put it on a rack so that the crust doesn't get soggy. And it's got to cool for at least half an hour before we can slice into it, preferably longer. So I'm going to lift the parts in here and loosen it. Beautiful round braided challah.